Before we dive into our main topic, let's kickstart your day with a 3-minute marketing tip.
Welcome to another marketing tip. I'm Naren. I'm one of the co-hosts of this podcast and the founder and CEO of Equa Marketing. I have the pleasure of serving dental practices for the last 17 years. So thank you for that. And the question or the tip that I have for you today is, how do I use digital photos to increase treatment acceptance? And I'm going to come at this from a marketing/influence perspective because, as you know, I'm the CEO of a marketing company. How do I use digital photos to increase treatment acceptance? So one of the marketing principles is the idea of commitment and consistency. When you tell your patients what's wrong with them, they are defensive. So you have to now sell it to them. So they are trying to think of all the reasons why you're trying to sell them something while you sell them, right? So don't sell, right? None of us like to sell. Let them find out what they need. So how do you help them find out what they need? Take close-up pictures. We'll put a link to the podcast where Gary literally talks about how to use digital photos to increase treatment acceptance. He has a very detailed process. Use that process, take these digital photos and leverage it in your conversation with your new patient. So they look at these pictures on an iPad and they immediately see what's wrong, right? They see the gaps, they see the discoloration, perhaps they see the crooked teeth, whatever it is. Now you just walk away while they kind of go through that and just start thinking about their questions. And then you ask them, hey, can I answer any questions? Now they are asking the questions. So remember, I said one of the influence principles is commitment and consistency. When they are committed to solving their problems, because now they have the pictures and they want to do something about it, your job becomes easy. You are no longer selling, you are helping them get what they want. This is why the treatment acceptance goes through the roof. Now, part of the challenge is you have to do it consistently. Every single new patient, you have to take the pictures the right way, you have to use the iPad the right way, and let them ask questions. So again, all those nuances, we'll put a link to that podcast that Gary did, and you can learn those nuances and master it. I think this tip alone would fundamentally transform your practice. You would make a lot more money because of that. Now, in the meantime, if you feel like you're not getting enough new patients, book a marketing strategy meeting. That's our gift to you. The link is equa.com/TDMSM. That's for Thriving Dentist MSM. MSM stands for Marketing Strategy Meeting. We'll spend several hours researching. It's a $900 value. It's my gift to you. At the end of the meeting, you will know where you stand, literally a report card on all the different things you're doing and what you can do better. And second, you will also get a plan, a 12-month plan to dominate Google, to dominate internet marketing. That's my gift to you. Take advantage of it. Till I see you next time, have a wonderful week.
You're invited to join our exclusive monthly webinar brought to you by the Business of Aesthetics community. Don't let this chance slip through your fingers. Secure your spot now for a game-changing experience. Register for free on our homepage at www.businessaesthetics.org and get set to transform your strategies.
Welcome to another episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast, brought to you by our gold sponsors, Equa Marketing. Today, we're excited to welcome Michael Walker. Let's dive into his insights and experiences.
Welcome to another segment of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Michael Walker, your host for this episode. Before we get started, I want to thank all of our incredible listeners from the United States, Canada, and around the globe. We couldn't do this without your continuous support. A special thank you also goes out to our sponsors for this episode, Equa Marketing. With nearly 20 years of experience, Equa Marketing is a leader in digital marketing services for aesthetic practices. They are offering our listeners a complimentary digital marketing consultation, which will include a tailor-made 12-month digital strategy for your practice. As we reach the end and after the podcast, you'll be able to head over to www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM to book your consultation. But I'll share more about that opportunity later in the podcast, so you don't worry if you didn't get all of that right away. So without further delay, let's dive into our theme for the day, which is the intersection of aesthetics and wellness. Joining us today is Carmen Stansberry. Great to have you with us, Carmen.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you as well. We were just catching up a little bit on California and all the things there, and just it's the one thing I've learned about life is it's definitely a one day at a time adventure.
I agree.
Yeah. But let me, before we go, let me share a little background, a bit of your background with our listeners. As a double board certified nurse practitioner and founder of the Advanced Practice, Carmen is dedicated to improving overall health outcomes for both men and women through innovative clinical strategies and care models. With over 2 decades of experience in both inpatient and outpatient settings, she brings extensive expertise in women's health, menopause care, obstetrics and gynecology, business, healthcare, marketing, and leadership. Carmen's passion lies in empowering clinicians to elevate their practices by providing advanced clinical care and equipping them with the business tools and resources necessary for success. Through the Advanced Practice, her firm, she is committed to driving forward-thinking healthcare solutions that enhance patient care while supporting clinicians in building sustainable and impactful business. Now, I happen to also know, I have inside information that I also know that she loves the challenges of challenging the status quo. She loves iced coffee, and she likes mountain hikes. So there you go.
True.
All true, I'm pretty sure. So
Yes.
go ahead and just jump into the questions, if that's okay with you, Carmen.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, I really like to start out these sessions with something just to help myself and our listeners just to get to know you a little more personal, and just so if you could share with us what was the genesis of your passion for healthcare?
Honestly, the genesis was probably my passion for science, which started way back in middle school and high school. The ability to take every science class available. And then college started the same way. I actually started as a pre-med student in slash biology. And so just taking in all the science, and that naturally moved me into the healthcare field.
You know, it's so interesting how often how often folks in healthcare, it's science that got them interested.
Yes, and because I feel like you have to have a passion for the systems and the science of things to really feel called to do it. And so it is a combination of wanting to help people, obviously, but truly it is for me a left-brained experience. I love the science, and solving the problems.
That's for me, we were both where I live in the right brain, and as leadership coach and a mediator. But I remember in the science side, I had no time for the science, but I was interested in the concept of what science could be applied to. But I didn't really want to learn I didn't want to do all the heavy lifting to apply that. I used to joke, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. People say, well, why? And I said, why? I just love animals. So why don't you buy a pet store or a kennel? I said, well, you make a good point.
Yeah, because that's same idea. I know that by the time I graduated high school, I had done, I think, somewhere around 18 animal dissections already.
Really?
Yeah, and so that was something. And then moving into college, same thing, our organic chemistry and anatomy and physiology and all the different things. Yeah, and that moved me right into healthcare.
Interesting. Yeah, I see the work that you've done, and you've covered it, been in a lot of areas. I'm sure you've got a favorite story on how your work with healthcare and with perhaps whether it be the patient or even a clinic itself. How have you got a favorite story how you've enhanced patient care, how you've made a difference, where you've seen that, or one of those aha moments for somebody?
I mean, I think probably the biggest difference made in healthcare was based on my own experience as a patient. And I think a lot of us can speak to that it's through our own experiences that grow our passions. And that kind of lends the story of why I ended up in nursing school rather than in a medical program. is I ended up getting married and having twins at the tail end of my undergrad degree. And so that kind of moved me into, by the time they were 2, it was like, okay, I've got, a science degree. What is the fastest way to get into the workforce? And so that moved me into nursing. It was my experience as a patient, having a high risk pregnancy, honestly. And that whole experience being in the hospital, working in healthcare, obviously close with my OBGYN. And the things that I felt like were right about that experience and all the things that were wrong probably is what drove my passion. Because when I finished my BSN, I went straight into labor and delivery. I didn't want to do anything else. I only wanted to work in high risk OB, in women's health, and be the healthcare provider and support that I felt like I didn't have. And then also emulate the ones that I did, because I had an incredible healthcare team. But to be able to say I'm going to go in and make a difference in other women's lives in a time where they're vulnerable and need it. I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. I spent 8 years as a labor and delivery nurse and then moved right into women's health as an NP.
Yeah, I hear your passion in that.
Yeah.
You remind me in my leadership coaching role with my clients, we focus on the whole concept of anybody can manage a process if you have the manual. Manage a process and people. Well, you're going to need a little self-awareness and other awareness and some tools around that. But really, and what you just described is the concept of influential leadership is what we
Yes.
focused on. And the whole idea of
Love
influential
that.
leadership is about giving somebody something they don't even know they need or want. But once they have it, they can't
Love that.
imagine living without it. And then they can't wait to give it away.
Yeah.
And it's the replicatable nature, which is what we're doing here, what your passion is to do that. But it's also, there's just something that's so, it's so organic. And when you have an experience and you get a vision from that experience, it sets a vision for you of making things right, doing things better, equipping people, whatever that might, however you look and take that. But there's something so satisfying. And I think that we have probably on the call, and we'll have people on the podcast that will maybe looking to starting a practice or getting started. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think that starting point of, what are you being able to answer the question what you're passionate about, and then be able to articulate that in a way that you can apply it to whatever field of endeavor you'd like to pursue.
Yeah, for sure. And taking it even a step further, I've had, just because I'm now so far into my career, that now looking back, really the overarching theme and maybe the way I felt in that moment of being disempowered or just not feeling you fully empowered has almost brought me here. And if you look at the progression of my career, even until now, helping other women start really profitable businesses, that has been the overarching theme. And so it's just interesting to watch, like you're saying, this passion driven career, that if you kind of have this overall premise, that you can really do anything with it. So
yeah, and I think that's kind of leads us to the theme today is of the podcast is the intersection of aesthetics and wellness. And I think we're in this area where there's a transactional nature to that, which is about what we do and how we do it. But then there's this relational piece, which is about who we are and why we matter. And that there's a science piece to it, and then there's the people part of it, the less tangible but just as significant of the wellness of the mind, body, and spirit, as well as you were talking to me before we started. You look at one situation, and that's going to reveal something. You're going to have to look at something else, which reveals something else. And it's about looking. I think that's what a professional offers, like yourself, that you can kind of go up in the balloon and see this from a holistic perspective, and provide and prescribe support in the area that they may have come to see it for, as well as these other things that are equally important that they don't, hence the influential leader. They don't really know they need that yet, but once they get it, they realize they really did. But so kind of like with that theme today, would you kind of unpack for us what that theme means to you and to our listeners?
Well, I think even as you say that, I think back to, spending nearly almost 10 years in the conventional medicine system and conventional OBGYN, seeing women day in and day out. I'm focusing on women because that really is my specialty, even though I did spend 2 years in primary care and I do take care of men to this day. But looking at how the conventional system was only solving part of the problem, and we only had one way to help women as they're coming in, and it was always fragmented. And so seeing that over and over, but also seeing all of the unmet needs. And that's what brought me to opening my practice in 2020, was to say, okay, I can, as a licensed healthcare provider, I can solve all of these complex issues, but then I can also create a different type of relationship with my patients where I am addressing them more holistically, offering both of those things where aesthetics and wellness actually intersect. In Because we know aesthetic medicine affects how we show up, right? There are, whether we like it or not, and we don't need to unpack the societal issues around aesthetics. Women care how they look. It impacts their careers. It impacts how they show up in their relationships. And so being able to put those two things together, I think is the most rewarding for those reasons.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that whole I've in past podcasts we've talked about some of the aspects of aesthetics and the vanity piece versus the necessary piece, and how much is too much and all those kind of things. But I think,
Yeah.
but it's almost, to me, it feels like that if you start with your identity first, and then everything else supports that. Like who really are, who do you, like, if you're trying to be something you're not, but there's I think in that wellness piece you're talking about, this idea that wellness isn't some kind of stereotypical picture that you're supposed to be, or someone's supposed to be, because society says that, but it's more this idea that wellness is I think of the concept I use is the idea of prosperity, or prosperos, which is wholeness or wellness in one, which is so prosperity is financial, it's relational, it's spiritual, it's physical, and it's emotional. It's not just money and how many likes and
Yeah.
followers you have.
Yeah.
It's much more, and I feel like that's what I'm seeing. Folks like yourself that are looking at bringing together all of the aspects of the person, again, hence the holistic language. So how do you do that in your practice? How do you make sure? And again, you've told me before you have a business academy as well. So you're in the teaching world. You're in that area of raising up leaders, and some of this we're talking about. How do you challenge them with the idea, and then how do you help them actually inculcate it into their own way of leading a practice, doing business, if you will?
Yeah, I think I want to just rewind just for a second on something you said and about prosperity and just that aesthetics piece. I think the most important thing when looking at aesthetic medicine and bringing people into your practice is really putting it back on the individual and the person, because it varies so much in who we want to be and how we want to show up, and how much is too much. I think that's up to the individual person. And this allows us to do that, having this very open-ended, for what is acceptable for one person maybe won't be for another. And that's why this patient-guided medicine that is holistic is so much better. So the one thing I like to get people thinking about, especially for those that own an aesthetic practice, is that what are we in the business of when we're doing aesthetics? We want our patients to feel confident. We are there as a guide for them to help them solve these complex problems, whether it's with their, appearance, how they're aging. What are the things that we can do and tweak and offer them to help them show up in the world in a way that they feel really good about, right? And so, but what I try and help people recognize is that the external is just only one part of that. So, for example, for women, hormones play a huge role in confidence and how we show up, or it's how we sleep, how we feel, how we move our body language, how we feel in our clothes, how we feel when we wake up in the morning. And so, for example, I treat a lot of women with hormone therapy, and men, but women specifically are reliant, for example, on testosterone for confidence. They need that hormone to feel confident. And so to say that all we're going to offer them is aesthetic treatments and we can't talk to them about hormones and these other things that impact our well-being, and our mental health, our physical health, and then also how we show up and appear on the outside. So that's just an example of what we talk about in the Business Academy, in my free communities, and really in my personal brand as well, is how do we look at the entire person and build treatment plans that affect all of these different areas. And that's how we get the best results. The clinicians that are doing this kind of care and doing it really well are getting the best results for their patients, hands down.
That just makes total sense to me.
Yeah.
And as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, okay, so if I had a practice, or I was, we probably have some folks on this that may be just looking at getting into this business too. Carmen, I think, mentioned that earlier. So we'll probably want to talk about some ideas from you on how they should approach that. Perhaps start at this as a starting point rather than others that are going to have to look at building this in.
Yes.
But if I already have a practice, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, so like, what are the pain points here? Like, what are the barriers to entry? What are the pain points? Like, I suspect someone like me, I'm intuitively curious, so I'm just intrigued. But other people are way more strategic. Say, well, I don't know, we all go through change differently, right? So that idea of, so there's got to be resistance to this. How do you help somebody start to be launching into a more a patient guided process and a more inclusive package of services? How do you help them overcome the pushback from the clients, or how do you communicate and educate them?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there's two layers, right? We are the healthcare providers that are looking at this new area of longevity medicine and health optimization, and how do we take all of this research coming at us, and some of it, has been really well studied, some things have not been well studied, and how do we take this and present it to our clients? Because we're also trying to at the same time educate the public on what does this actually mean? What does this type of medicine even mean for outcomes? How do they get it? And there's always this question of, well, why can't I use my insurance? And so really, what I try and empower clinicians to do in their business is, one, they have to think about what is the problem they're actually solving? Who is this client and what are they actually experiencing? What's missing? Why are they looking for something new and different? Or how can you take what they're already doing and enhance it? But the framework is very focused on outcomes. And so we have a way of, clients will come to us with their problems, right? And say, I don't like these jowls that are forming, or I don't like the darkness and laxity of my under eyes. And we know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to patch, we're going to use this and it's going to work. And the outcome is pretty consistent for the most part. When you're incorporating wellness, you're looking at a person and you're looking at them holistically. Where are they today? Maybe they don't feel so great. They're tired. They're waking up tired, and they have, darkness and laxity under their eyes, and they have some aging in their face through oxidative, the process of oxidation, just simply aging, but it's due to the underlying factors like inflammation and poor gut health and declining hormones and all the endocrine disrupting chemicals and plastics that are circulating in our blood. So looking at, if you see this type of person and what they could be, what are they striving for? What is the outcome? And this is something we have to think about as clinicians, but also in the way that we are educating our clients. That in 6 months from now, if we incorporate more of a holistic treatment plan and we tackle all of these things, we get your inflammation down, we decrease your visceral fat, We optimize your hormones. We get you on the right supplement program. You're eating enough fiber and having proper detox pathways. What is your life going to look like at the end of that 6 months? But it's our job as clinicians to, when looking at the entire person, how do we reverse engineer a plan for them that hits on all of these things? And so that's what I teach, is these very specific, I mean, from giving my exact intake tools, the questions, how do I pull out of my clients what their goals actually are to get there? And I will actually tell my patients, how you feel today is not how you're going to feel in 12 weeks after we work together. In 6 months from now, you're going to feel like a completely different person. And that is the part that is so powerful. And so getting people to shift their mindset from this like fee for service, whack-a-mole, fix each problem individually, is to look at the entire outcome of what you are trying to do, and become a partner, you know, to your patients and actually helping them achieve it all. Because this type of medicine and health optimization is truly life changing. And then providing the education for the patients to understand their healthcare on a much deeper level, and the things in their life that are causing problems. Like, one example is telling my patients, if you're in a toxic relationship, a toxic marriage, that is impacting your rate of aging, your hormone health, your inflammation, and your risk of chronic disease. And it's no medication is gonna help that.
Yeah, that's a great example. That you mentioned something, and I was just funny. I was listening to you, and I said, "Well, this is like reverse engineering 101."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm listening to it, but for our listeners, when we talk about reverse engineering, it's a term that it's the idea of the question that gets set up before to exercise that process is
Mm-hmm.
in my leadership coaching world, it's about, in a year from now, what do you want your story to be?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
what do you want your story to be a year from now? And what does that look like in terms of what you're passionate about, in terms of how you look, how you feel as a person, not the look and feel is more than is beyond skin deep. It's the
Mm-hmm.
whole person. And
It's
that's
the
that
whole thing.
idea. Well, in a year, using your example, well, I'm passionate about feeling whole and healthy and free of this relationship that just is pulling me down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, to use your term. So let's reverse engineer that. What do we need to do what do we need to do to get there starting state? How do we take those steps back to get there? And I think that's one of the things I've noticed is that, people generally say, well, that's just too much change. I don't like change. That's the other
And
one. And
yeah, and that's why it takes time. I mean, that's the thing. This is not, and that's what pulls us away from fee for service medicine, does not give us the time, and it is the difference between having your clients come to you with all of their problems, because that's a whole nother thing to unpack, is trying to, retrofit a conventional medicine model into a cash-based practice. And that's where a lot of business owners get stuck. They just say, this is too hard, I can't do this, because that's what they're trying to do. But instead, we can attract our clients by saying, this is how good it could be. Let me show you. I'm not going to show you how I'm going to treat your fatigue, but I am going to show you how I can help you gain more energy.
yeah, beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, with today, we've just gotten so into everything, again, depending what generation we're talking to, everything just in time, and everything happened quickly, and we want all these great things. But the reality is, change does take time. But
Mhm.
my approach has always been we actually love change. We're just not so keen on the transition.
Yeah.
I love the idea of
We know what
losing
we
20
want.
pounds. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
idea of losing 20 pounds and having my six pack and being recruited for the NFL.
Uh-huh.
But I'm really not so keen on the work I'd have to put in to do that. It would involve some significant changes in my life. But when we break it down, it's like, and for those of you who are listening to this, I mean, it's about taking what I'd say the next right step. There's something, what Carmen's talking about, there's something in there. What could I do today? One thing differently to start moving towards something that I'm looking to accomplish. And I know that we're going to have, you've talked about your business academy, and some of your free your writing and stuff. I know you've so I know some of our listeners are kind of going to be wanting to they're probably hearing something that's triggering them thinking, well, I like that idea, but I probably need more information or understanding
Yeah.
it. We'll roll around that just but we wrap
Yeah.
up as well. So we'll keep you excited as a listener. So let's just assume that we had a couple of sides of the question. One is like, what are the trends that you're seeing? And we talk about this, intersecting aesthetics and wellness. And we talk, what are some of the trends and developments that are already shaping or going to continue to shape this philosophy? And I mean, I think of right off the top of the top question in everybody's is AI, of course, and how that plays out. But there's all kinds of other things. But what are your thoughts? What are those some of those trends and developments you think are going to shape this approach to wellness and aesthetics?
I think it is one just becoming more mainstream. People, the public is kind of getting keen on the idea that preventative medicine is very powerful, and that I think is going to start to take the place of the primary care model in conventional medicine. People are being very proactive about their health, and that's why some of this is not as hard of a sell, because people are hearing it. And with social media, they know what's out there, they know what's available. I can tell you, like, my male patients come in and they're sitting in front of me, they know as much as I do. They are listening to Huberman, and they are listening to Joe Rogan, and it just is because they're into wellness. They know what's out there and they know exactly what they want. And they're using different tools. That's the other part, is all the technology, the wearables that are out there are going to get even more, probably more mainstream. And I think what we're going to be able to do as clinicians and AI is synthesize that information and data in ways we've never been able to do before. And that will assist us in creating even more robust treatment plans. I think that the wearables and the AI together, that's going to be really huge. But also this concept of holistic care. We are already seeing it in the world of aesthetics. Fillers becoming, the synthetic fillers becoming a little bit, or HA fillers, I should say, a little bit less common. And then the regenerative treatments like Sculptra, the collagen stimulators, more natural, quote unquote, treatments are becoming more in demand. People want more natural results. It's happening here in California for sure, but they don't want just that. It's a simple conversation of, you can't have beautiful looking skin if you're not detoxing just your entire system in general. And so being able to give them those more comprehensive treatment plans, that's probably the biggest ones, is that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm definitely predicting. And this concept of longevity medicine.
Yeah, thank you. I think there is a real receptivity to it for sure. You can see it. I think it's interesting. I just had a conversation the other day. We're talking about with the impact of COVID and that whole season. What's interesting is that I was just talking to an executive who is frustrated because they're working from home 3 of the 5 days a week, and they're going into the office. And now the company is changing. They want everybody in the office. And he said, "But I don't want to go back.
I'm not ready."
I've gotten to know my family. I've got to know myself. That's not going to work for me." And so part of this holistic thing. So there's all these different things that are triggering that mindset. It's like this COVID's created a window of reflection on what's important.
Yes. About what people want.
Yeah, and it's exciting. So I think this just lines up. So if you are, this idea that we're talking about, and really, if you use the business language, I mean, we're really talking about bringing value-added services into an organization to be like remember the Cheers TV show where everybody knows your name, that you're just there's comfort and a safety that I can just go, like you said, with your male patients. I mean, that once they have a connection with you, they're not going to go anywhere else.
And
Because
that's exactly it. I was going to say that what healthcare is missing is that people don't actually feel cared for. And so when a patient can come to me and say, this is what I heard about, and he's not going to be shamed, or, that we're just exploring that together. What are his values? What are his goals? What's important to him? Yeah. And just being able to offer that. I think that I also could touch on how community is becoming such a big part of this too, that we are, as people, just with COVID and coming out of this, that we are craving in-person experience and community, whether it be in our healthcare spaces, our wellness spaces, or just public in general work. People are craving that
Yeah.
community. Yeah. And feeling
Absolutely.
seen. Like, I think that's what it comes down to. They feel seen for what they're valuing and how they're showing up, and they, have that place they can talk about it.
Well, there's a saying that's been around a long time. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care,
Yeah, it's
right?
true.
And
People want to
that's
feel cared for.
and
They really do.
the number one reason a person leaves an organization, you can't really quit well, you can quit family, but
Oh, that's a
generally
different
we don't do
podcast.
that too.
Yeah.
But it's the number one reason people leave an organization is because they're not valued and heard.
Yep.
And COVID actually forced us into this isolated bubbles, but then suddenly valued and heard became not non-negotiable. And as an employer, I just new statistics out that for the United States, that the employee engagement level, active engagement, has dropped to its lowest level ever. People are less
Wow.
engaged than they ever have been before. And and you say, so why? What's going on? And I said, well, because because we're talking about this philosophy of holistic living, if you will, holistic well-being. Organizations haven't caught up yet.
Right. Exactly.
And
They're still treating their employees like employees, and they want to be treated like people.
Exactly. And I think of this, and as I've been thinking about this, Carmen, there's a whole focus in my work where someone like you coming in and coaching them, how do you do holistic wellness as it relates to an organization, and introduce the concepts in ways that it's now where traditionally we have employee benefits, quote unquote, that are fine and we need them. And obviously in the States, we have a little different kind of healthcare framework, but the reality is people want that, but they also, they want benefits that line up to what they're passionate about. And that's what we're talking about. It's interesting. I think you're going to see a whole shift there that you are well positioned to jump on that train.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave that there. So, let me just, if we had any folks that were just new to the business, looking at getting into the business, clearly we're speaking a lot to those that are already in, and they're probably thinking, okay, I could see there's some things I need to be thinking about adding on, and I'm not really sure where I should start yet, but we've got that juice flowing. But I'm thinking about that. Newper, what does this look like? Well, I want to start there. I want to do that. How would you respond to that?
I think the most important thing when thinking up a business idea is just looking obviously in your community, where's your target audience, but what are the problems that you're going to be solving for? What are you looking at solving for people, and then next, how are you going to do it? Obviously, it's good to do market research and make sure that there's a market for what you're doing. But my best tip is people need to be thinking too about creativity, bringing creativity back into business as well. That the sky is honestly the limit. There is now a Skin Spirit inside of a Nordstrom I just saw. And this is the other thing, is these partnerships, and, Aloe Fitness Wear, Aloe Yoga has now launched a sexual health product. There is very much this partnering of different service lines. And so people really thinking outside of the box in this way, I think, are going to be really successful. I have a client in my business academy who has added on sauna, cold plunge, and a salt room in her med spa practice. Like, it's incredible. And so she's, looking at her market very holistically to say, how can I create a space where people can come and do multiple things? And that's where the community piece comes in too. And so my best advice would be looking kind of at the broader picture. One thing I love to look at when dreaming up ideas is the McKinsey reports. I mean, McKinsey will come out with reports on what's going to be trending, where are wellness trends headed. But just for starting out, how can I solve a problem and how can I do it really creatively? That's my best advice.
Yeah, I think, and some of this, we're talking about with when you're starting to, I always like to think, I think the traditional strategy of, here, I have this, on Dell computers or whatever,
Yeah.
I make computers, do you want to buy one?
Mm-hmm.
That works if your brand is Coca-Cola. But
Yeah.
but it doesn't work if you're starting out. And so but the flip side is, which is what you're talking about, is the Apple strategy. We're going to create a community that we're going to live completely different than we ever have before. Oh, by the way, we're going to sell computers
Yeah.
and pods and
Yeah,
all these things.
exactly.
And
Exactly. And that's truly creating a brand. And I think this is where, honestly, when healthcare providers become entrepreneurs and they want to open a practice or open a business, they think about it in a healthcare way. And what people need to start doing is thinking about it in a service industry way. You are now in the service industry providing healthcare when it's cash. And so, you're building a service business, you're not building a healthcare business. And of course, this is my personal philosophy, and people may have things to say about that, but thinking about it just in a different way, and thinking about it as you're solving a problem and providing a service, not necessarily providing healthcare.
yeah. Well, you just proved my point that you do challenge the status quo. So thank you very much.
Yes, I do. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, this whole, it is the idea that I think it comes back to, as somebody new, the obvious question is why are you, like, as you shared, why are you looking at getting into this business?
Yes.
Why are you in it? And what really is it's the most powerful question I ever, in mediations and arbitration, all the stuff I do on that side, in leadership coaching, the most powerful question that I found that is that you need to ask for yourself, but ask others, is, what are you passionate about?
Yeah,
Like, really.
exactly.
And so you'd be amazed how few people can answer that question.
Yep.
Very successful business people, and athletes, and I do a lot of work in athletes in the music industry, and it's not, they're not. They've just lost sight of their core identity. What really to your point, the science that got you excited at some point, that you now wanted to make a difference with that and help others in a way that they couldn't necessarily know or see how to help themselves.
Yes. And also that concept of, even though, some may say it's cliche, but why? What is your why? What are you doing, and why are you looking to make this change? And I think not enough people ask themselves that question. Why am I actually thinking of starting a business? Is it because I'm so excited about the possibility, or am I running away from the pain of my current situation? And how is that going to impact my decision and how fast I need to move? And finding that passion, like you're saying, if you don't have it, you got to find that too first, before you start. And some people, depending on their personality, I guess, some people are going to be very careful planners and think about every last detail. And other people are like, no, I'm going for it. I'm entering the market. I'm ready to go. So.
And that's just where there's, arguably 16 different personality types. And
Yeah.
we're all one of those. No, there's no more than 16% of the world that'll get you any one day of the year. So, but the interesting thing is that in that concept of putting a team together, and I assume with your business, it's looking at, when you're equipping a team, it's not just equipping them in terms of what they're obviously, you need credentials and training and all this sort of things. And if we're flying planes, you need someone who's got a pilot's license.
Yeah.
But how do you have the person that's a great listener, have the person that's a visionary, the person that's challenging status quo, just that whole thing, and looking at that when you're starting with a green a green field, this opportunity of really, but you can't look at all of that until you've looked at yourself.
Yep.
And
I
once you
agree.
understand yourself, then you can add those pieces on. But you don't even have to figure it out for the others. Just I think the greatest gift that everything we've been talking about and what you've been doing is storytelling. And
Yes.
people love that's why this podcast is successful. It's the storytelling. There's a
Mhm.
people, yeah, and it kind of comes back, as I said, probably people don't care much you know until you know how much they care. That there's a story in there that people can identify with, and they say, that I can line up with that. And it's become more and more prevalent, and it seems to be more the norm than the exception. And you see it all the time in television broadcasting as well. But I want to kind of just watch our time, but I want to kind of come
Yeah.
kind of full circle to I have two questions, and I'll let you kind of you can parse them out as you'd like. But how do you continue to learn and grow? And secondly, how do you stay motivated and inspired?
How I continue to learn and grow is I invest a lot of time and money into mentorship. I have a business coach. I spend a lot of time on self development, understanding myself, understanding my business, my relationship to my business. And so I will always recommend to people, it's very difficult to see the forest through the trees when you're in the thick of it, and having a coach and having a mentor is life changing. I mean, my first business mentorship I did was back in 2012 with a totally unrelated business. I owned a photography business for 15 years, and just even since then, every single year, no matter what, I'm investing in some kind of mentorship. Not to mention things go so quickly. I'm also an avid reader. I mean, I'm reading all the time, listening to podcasts. I could not tell you the last time I read fiction. So it's either research, or it's clinical research, or attending conferences, business events, podcasting. That's how I stay up to date. And then talking, communication with other people, networking. And now I forgot your next question.
It motivated and inspired.
Oh, you know what? Honestly, my motivation comes from my audience and the feedback and watching their wins and them seeing things about themselves and just showing up so confidently. I'm getting goosebumps as I say it. That truly is what keeps me going, because I can remember the first time I got paid as a clinician, as a business owner, and really felt empowered. And I'll go back to that theme. It all goes back to feeling empowered. And when you feel empowered in life, especially as a woman, there's nothing better than that. And that truly is what keeps me going. Not to say that there aren't days in my business where I struggle and I'm growing too quickly or I'm feeling inadequate. Those feelings are all very normal. But it's the feedback from my community and watching their wins and successes gets me up in the morning every single day.
Beautiful. I can totally identify that. That's you're taking my stuff.
Yes, I'm sorry. And then honestly, even the bigger scale is that I know how much I'm impacting the lives of the people around me and the patients out there, and healthcare on a greater scale, and just trying to make a difference.
Well, not trying, you are. We always are.
Well, thank you.
I always say that if it's the one, if there's a good day and there's a great day. A good day is that you think about showing up. A great day is you do show up.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're showing up for other people's lives. I was saying I use for myself, how do I make my ceiling somebody else's floor?
Oh, I love that. That's
How do I
great.
set them up for success? And we're talking about coaches, something that I've learned over the years with my clients and stuff, and they've been with me, some of them for a long time, and we've gone way beyond what we're dealing with in the business, or we've gone through family stuffs and all kinds of pieces. But
Uh-huh.
ultimately, if I ask them what's most valuable today, it's that this is the only place that I have an agenda-free space.
It's true.
You don't have it anywhere else. You don't have it
Yeah.
at home, my family. You can't.
Yeah.
You don't. And it's just so powerful. And that's where you can just have that place that you can just deal with stuff and not have there's no agenda. And
Yeah.
if there's anything as a coach, if you're thinking of a coach, getting somebody that you can identify with, it's making sure that you can get the things that you're looking for out of that. we're just about out of time. And this has been fun, Carmen. This has been a
Yeah.
great conversation with you. And
So good.
thank you so much for joining us today. How would it be best? I know that we have your website is the advanced, so advanced with a D, practice.com.
Mm-hmm.
And your email is carmen@advancedpractice.com. Is that right?
Carmen at theadvancedpractice.com. Did you say that? Maybe you did.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
And so is that the best, and is that the best place for someone to go to the website? Would they be able to connect to find out more about the business school or some of your other your public teachings or things like that?
Yeah, a lot of that is actually on the website. And then we also have a free community on Facebook that people can join and just start to get a touch of kind of what we're all about and see some of the events that we have going on, and the different things that we offer.
So what's your Facebook address?
It's the Advanced Practice Business and Marketing for Clinicians.
Gee, it's a nice short one, eh?
Yeah, it's actually really long and annoying. That's why I say go to the website and just click on the link.
It'll take you.
It'll take you there.
All the tags are down there. You're right.
That's and then we do, a lot of blogging, writing, podcasting, and putting out content all over the place. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I just so thank you for the conversation. I know that some of our listeners are going to want to take you up on that. Be very surprised if we haven't tweaked some thoughts that are just begging for change in 2025.
Yeah, I love that. Such a good conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. So I do want to take a moment to thank our listeners. We appreciate every one of you. A big thank you also goes out to our sponsors, Equa Marketing, who are experts in digital marketing for aesthetic practices. And speaking of marketing, here's today's marketing moment. Do you know the number of new patients you got last month from Google organic marketing? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't know, this is something you really need to learn about, and you need to implement call and patient tracking. And just a thought, there's a process for that, but I do want to remind you of the free digital marketing consultation I mentioned at the beginning of our podcast that's being made available to help you with digital marketing planning and activation. Again, I'm using the word free, and please pay attention to that. You can book your free consultation by going to www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM, Michael S. Sam Michael. So for me, I have to ask two questions when considering an opportunity like this. First, what's at risk to accept this offer, which in this case is your time because it's free. And the second question, which is probably more significant and important, what's at risk not to? You've heard a lot of things here, a lot of opportunity. I'll leave that with you. Again, www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM for a free marketing consultation. I have only heard great things from people. You'd say I'm biased, but I'm actually independent of the company, so I'll leave that there as well. If you like our podcast, please share with your friends and colleagues. What a great opportunity to set someone else up for success. Also, please don't forget to leave us a review. We love reviews. We all love reviews. Thank you again, Carmen, for being with us today. And thank you, our listeners, for the privilege of your time, and wish you all an amazing week ahead.
Thank you, Michael. It's so great to be here.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsor, Equa Marketing. Would you like to join our growing group of aesthetic industry experts and get featured on the Business of Aesthetics podcast? Or do you know someone who would love to share their strategies for growth in the aesthetic business, providing quality patient care or their clinical expertise? Head over to www.businessofesthetics.org podcast show and apply to be featured as a guest on the show. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. If you would like to engage with today's speakers or any of our past speakers, join our Facebook group or LinkedIn group by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Thank you, and have a great day.